What's up, my beautiful people? We have reconvened in the war room after a lengthy layoff, and we are talking women's boxing today with my resistor sister and women's boxing historian, Melissa Smith. She just released her latest book, The Promise of Women's Boxing, a momentous new era for the sweet science. And of course, we are here with my boy, Mr. Eddie Goldman. He is the one and only sports editor at No Holds Barred News. Welcome, Eddie. Thank you for being here. We call you the conscious of combat sports. And we're going to kick it off right now because why? Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor, they faced off again this past weekend. And oh my God, it was fireballs and firebombs, bullets and bombs all night long with those two. So look, Melissa, I'm just going to show you guys because I thought Amanda did enough to pull out a victory over Katie, but apparently that was not the case. So I need you to break this down for me, please.
Well, the judges shockingly agreed on the total tally of a 95-94 win to Katie Taylor, which was
that is crazy.
Shocking. Shocking that it was agreed upon. They scored different rounds when you looked at the cards. So how they got to their total numbers differed slightly, but that was pretty shocking that was the total.
Even with a point deduction.
Because it would have been 96-94. They saw that of the 10 rounds, they gave Katie 6 and Amanda 4. That was what they saw. 4 rounds to 6. And there are those who say, no, it was the other way around. With Serrano winning 6 rounds, Katie winning 4. There are those who say it was 5-5. Very, very disputed. I mean,
how did you score the fight? How did you score the fight?
I had a really hard time scoring the fight. So I really didn't. I kind of cheated in that sense. What I saw, and I watched it a couple of times. First of all, during the actual event, I kept buffering. I completely lost the third through the 5th round. I really came into it right at the end of the 5th. So I didn't see the headbutt. I didn't see any of that. So really, I only watched 6, 7, and 8, and then it started buffering again. I completely lost the 10th round, so I could not score it at all. I never saw that Katie Taylor got cut with a headbutt. So towards the later rounds, I watched it again the following morning. I watched it then the day after that, and some of what the feeling is that Taylor had better feet. She threw tighter combinations. She had better ring generalship, especially in the latter part of the fight. She also used, the tactics of holding. That is her. Listen, that's what.
When she used some other tactics too.
When somebody is coming at you and you want to break their momentum, you grab. That is, and it's up to the ref to say, hey, no holding, which is what he did. He would say, hey, no holding. They had headbutts. This is the case of a southpaw fighting an orthodox fighter. There are always headbutts in that condition. I will give you an example. Amanda Serrano fighting Erica Cruz 2 years ago when she won the undisputed fight. They had a huge headbutt.
Man, that was a good
Erica
fight.
Cruz had a gash this big throughout the entire fight. It was not a dissimilar situation. I will also say that one of the things in boxing is if your opponent has a gash on their eye or they got a big shiner on their eye, what do?
You go after
it. This is boxing.
It's boxing. It's the hurt game.
and you hit
Right.
it. And again,
Exactly.
I suggest that everybody hating on Katie right now, go watch Amanda Serrano fighting Erica Cruz, where all she did was land punches on that
On that
side
spot,
of
right.
Erica Cruz's head.
Trying to get her to
So
quit.
it's boxing.
Right.
Okay. Now, there were there was an original initial headbutt, then there was a second one when their heads clashed, and that's what really opened up the
It was
gash.
nasty too.
And that was a horrible cut. Amazing, all kudos to Amanda Serrano as an amazing warrior to have fought through that, the pain of that, to dig deep into her soul to be able to do that. They had another headbutt, and this time Katie got cut. It wasn't as bad. It was on her eyebrow, but it was in the later end of the fight. If that had happened earlier, trust me, that would have opened up. The thing about their fight was it was all out, ovaries to ovaries. They may have walked into the fight, hey,
Right.
we're just here to fight each other, but neither of them wanted to lose.
Uh-uh.
And Serrano had a cut really early, and she was like, I am not going to lose.
She
And,
quit for sure.
and all, and her team, she's got Maldonado, her brother-in-law trainer, who was screaming about the cut from the beginning, going, Katie's a dirty fighter. Katie's a dirty fighter. Well, why was he doing that? Because he was trying to get points taken away from her during the fight so that he could give Amanda the advantage. So again, being mindful that this is boxing and that there
Right.
are tactics in boxing. And every time, the ref would come to their corner, he'd go, you see that? You see that? She's dirty. She's trying to headbutt her. So that has to be placed in context. Now, as a person coming to this fight, because it was also a phenomenon, right? You've got this Mike Tyson fighting Jake Paul and the clown show.
That wasn't a fight.
It wasn't a fight. It was a sad. I mean, we'll talk about it, but you had them at the high end of the ticket, and a lot of people wanted to see that because of the phenomenon of Jake, the marketing of Jake Paul, who's this internet dude, and the old warrior Mike Tyson, and that's why they were tuned into the card. And Serrano and Taylor were the co-main. They were the fight before they were the penultimate fight on the card. So there were a lot of eyes watching that fight. They already had some, I think Netflix announced 60 million households watching their portion of the fight. That's that's a lot more than 60 million people. That's 60 million devices looking at it that could have n number. It can be a bar full of 50 people, So there were a lot of eyes watching them fight. And a lot of those people know nothing about boxing. So in terms of a lot of the furor that's come up after it are people that looked and went, Amanda had a cut. Oh my God, she was robbed. Well, maybe I don't think in any case was she robbed, because it was a very, very, very close fight that could have gone, in my estimation, either way. It was that close and yes, Serrano landed more. She threw more. She always throws more, pretty much, except for Erica Cruz, who, they both threw like 1,000
punches, right?
But Taylor never throws that many punches, but her accuracy is high when she does land, and she's very much punches and bunches, and they're very effective. That's not to say, again, that Serrano was not, but on a technical level, Taylor is a better fighter as far as I'm concerned. So I can see why the judges would have scored it that way, to say, because again, they're not looking at it at the end of the fight. They're scoring it round by round.
Mm.
And what they see round by round, what they're watching for round by round is not only, well, how many punches are they playing, but who's aggressive, who isn't, who's showing ring generalship, who's having the better technical opportunity. And it's also, again, it's a subjective. There might be judges who are rewarding aggression over technical proficiency. There may be judges who are rewarding sort of a high level of technical ability and footwork and kind of all those things together. Because remember, Katie Taylor was fighting mostly off the back foot. She kept going back, but she was able to be tremendously effective on the back foot and able to slip in between punches, and able to execute whenever Amanda would throw. She had a lot of counter punches, and when she counter punched, she threw a lot of punches on those counters. So I can see why they would have scored it that way. It was very, very close. It was a whisker, a cat's whisker between them. I would have been happier as a draw, frankly.
Yeah.
But the emotion of the cut and the emotion of Katie as the dog, and she gets that way in some of her fights. Some of her fights, she's cerebral. In that fight, she was 100% dog.
Right. She was a pit bull.
And that got very emotional because of the cut, in my estimation.
Let me ask you guys, do the judges ever tell folks like this is how I judge a fight? Do the fighters know beforehand how a
No.
judge is going to judge a fight?
There are general rules that they have to follow in professional
Right.
boxing. And it's important to point out that the rules in scoring in professional boxing are very different from that of amateur or Olympic boxing.
Right.
In amateur boxing, basically you count the punches. So if you land a big left hook, say, that rocks somebody, that's one punch. And in amateur boxing, if you land one of these paintbrush jabs, that's one punch. Those two are equal. Professional boxing, they're not, because it's a more dangerous sport, and it's also aimed at adults, where amateur boxing has a lot of younger people and kids. And there are four basic points. It's scored, as Melissa said, round by round, scored in a 10-point must system. Somebody must get 10 points. Most rounds end up being 10-9. If there's a knockdown, it might be 10-8 usually, but doesn't have to be. And to get 10-8, you don't have to get a knockdown. If you really batter somebody all over the place, but just don't get the knockdown, you might get 10-8. There's a certain amount of subjectivity in there also, as Melissa said. And there are four basic points that you have to weigh. There's effective aggression. And the role of the aggressor is important in each round. Defense is important. Clean, effective punching is very important. Clean, effective punching, not amount of punches. That's that's what's used in pro boxing. And ring generalship, that's also to a certain degree subjective. So when you have a fight like Taylor and Serrano, really both of their fights, they're high level, the top of the top of the top of the elite. They're both great boxers, and they both going to go all out for these short 2-minute rounds. You have to balance all this stuff in a very short round, and unless somebody clearly dominates, it can become where reasonable people disagree. Who won a round? Who won a fight? I mean, I give an example of the first round where Katie Taylor seemed to be doing real well through the most of the round, but at the very end, Serrano landed a couple of punches that rocked her. So how do you score that round? Do you just look at what happened in the last few seconds, or what happened for the bulk of the round? You have to balance that, and different people will come to different conclusions reasonably. We're not talking about the biases and the corruption and all that other stuff that goes on in judging and officiating. We're talking about reasonable people. So you had people like Clarissa Shields and I think Carolyn Dubois also
Yeah, they
scored the
both.
fight for Katie Taylor.
Yeah,
There wouldn't be
cleanly,
any
clearly.
bias there. The judges who were approved by the Texas Commission went for the fighter for Ireland against Serrano, who was the fighting for the promotion there. And the referee also, in my opinion, and that of many other people, were I think unjustly took a point away from Katie Taylor for the headbutts. I don't think he should have done that. I don't think they were necessarily intentional. And again, as Melissa said, you have a southpaw fighter against an orthodox fighter. It happens frequently. So I don't think these were intentional headbutts that took place. And in this kind of fight, only 10 rounds, 1 point could have really made the difference. It ended up not making a difference in terms of who won, but it really could have. The other thing to keep in mind is that while you had over 70 million marks watching in the AT&T Stadium who thought they were coming to see a real, fight with Tyson and Jake Paul, most people of these 65 million concurrent streams and all that stuff, at least in the US, were listening to Rosie Perez. I'm sorry. Rosie Perez is the embodiment of what the late great Uncle Roger Mayweather said.
Oh
Most
no.
people don't know shit about boxing. She was clearly biased for Serrano, making a big deal. Oh, she's Boricua, she's from Brooklyn, all this stuff. Very good. If you're going to root for Serrano, fine. That's wonderful. You're a fan. You're not a journalist. You're not an announcer. Don't put that person on the broadcast if that's all that they're going to do. Don't have them doing play by play. So, I mean, just as an example, just more in the Jake Paul Tyson fight, towards the very end of that fight, when the crowd went silent because most of these marks thought they were seeing Mike Tyson from 1988 rather
Yeah.
than Mike Tyson in 2024, they went quiet when Tyson had virtually zero offense, and Paul, that we'll get into that later, but Paul was doing whatever he wanted. She said the crowd was stunned. They weren't stunned. They were heading for the exits. Read the reports. Thousands of people were said this is a stinker. I paid all
Right.
this money for this crap. And she completely misunderstood, misinterpreted what was going on. And the same thing in the Serrano fight. You have biased announcing. Most people watching who don't know shit about boxing listen to the announcers because they think they're getting a nuanced, intelligent, educated view, and they're not. So,
And who's that WWE guy, the screamer?
I thought he was from the USFC. That
which
The,
that
one?
announcer
the
who
guy, the screamer,
Perez.
the
Yeah.
one, the shouter from WWE and UFC. I think he did both. Oh, he's horrible. Oh my God.
And
He
he
will
likes to
shut
throw his
up.
little, yeah, he has his little one-liners.
Oh,
He's a trip.
Who was calling that? Was that Morrow?
I don't know his name. The
I
That's
loud
usually
guy.
don't listen too much to
I
the
have to tell you,
announcing.
when I rewatched it, I turned it off. I was quiet. I watched it without sound. I really did not need to hear the bullshit. I
right.
wanted to see the fight for what it was. And I watched it a couple of times, and it was a whisk by a hair's breadth. It really was.
Right
And
on.
and and this fight, one thing that was not hard to predict was that the Taylor Serrano fight would be the best fight and steal the
Yeah,
show.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
We knew that ahead of time, but most people didn't. And I wonder this exposure, all these numbers that are being put out by Netflix at this point. they're saying, let me get the numbers they said on the Taylor Serrano fight. They're saying, according to them, the Taylor Serrano fight averaged an estimated 74 million live viewers globally
Damn.
and
Not viewer,
became
like
the most
live
watched professional
households.
women's
Yeah.
sports event in U.S.
Ever.
history with 47 million and in the U.S. Now, how many of those people just were tuning in for the clown fight and just tuned in early? And
They
of those
did.
people that watched it, how many are going to be converted to watch women's boxing or any real boxing? I don't know the answer to that, but we won't know until there are some cards that you could point them to. Because if they
Exactly.
said, wow, I haven't seen women's boxing before, this is really good. These women can really fight. It's a great competitive fight. These are obviously two of the top pound for pound. Well, I don't get too much into pound for pound rankings, but if you had to do women's pound for pound,
They're in the
those are
top
two
three.
of the top
Yeah.
three.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
three of them.
in
Yeah,
whatever order you
whatever
want to put
order.
them. Okay, so and they said, "Wow, I really, I haven't watched boxing in a while. I didn't even know women were fighting. I want to see this. What the hell are you going to tell them to watch?" The Saudi Arabians are not putting on women's boxing,
Nothing.
despite Mr. Turkey saying that they were going to do it. They did one fight in October, early in the card. None on the card. They just had November card
And
in Riyadh. Okay, the December 21 card with Usyk, the Usyk Fury rematch.
nothing.
So far,
Yeah, we don't
nothing.
care about them.
And there's a February. Well, this is where the big fights. There's a February card they're putting together that, granted, they haven't even put out what the main event's going to be and what's on that card, but I haven't heard anything about them putting a women's fight on there. PBC, what's left of it, which
Nothing.
claims they're finally coming back in 2025, doesn't have women's
They haven't
boxing.
had women in 5 years since
Yeah, and
before
Top
COVID.
Rank once in a while puts on a women's fight.
They just had one. Yeah,
The British-based promotion does. They're having a Tasha Jones against
yeah, yeah.
Habazin headlining their card in December.
Next month.
In a couple, I think it was December 14th. Is that fight?
Yeah, something like. And but let me tell you something. Jonas has been trying to get a fight for 7 months, including
Yeah,
trying
it's
eight
a
months.
champion, Miss GB, very well known. People love
Huge.
her.
She was the first woman to win, the British Boxing Board of Control Fighter of the Year. I mean, she's huge. And she could not get a fight for 8, 9 months. So this is
Why?
bullshit,
Why?
you know. And Michaela Mayer, who's, arguably one of the best American fighters out there today, definitely a pound for pound top 10 fighter, top five probably. She finally got a fight, which headlined at the MSG, Little Theater, set records for ESPN fights, period. Never mind for women fights, period. She fought Sandy Ryan. It was a fantastic main event. But ESPN only has one female fighter now. I mean, I'm sorry, Top Rank has one fighter because uh, their other fighter just retired. I'm blanking on the name. I'll get there in a sec. But there's nothing,
Wow.
nothing. And why did she retire? Because tired of the bullshit. Can't get fights.
Right, can't get fights and can't get paid.
Yeah, and then you
I
got
can't get it.
Gabriela
Can't get
Fundora,
exposure.
who's
Yep.
the newest. She just became undisputed at 112 pounds. Her brother Gabriel Fundora. I mean, they were like a brother and sister act of amazing boxers. Nobody ever heard of her. It's crazy. She's a remarkable
In
fighter.
Mexico, they have probably more women's fights, but they just be shown on TV in Mexico
They're
usually.
not shown here. The only people showing fights are DAZN in the United States. The only, basically, in terms of a major fight card, you only see them on DAZN,
Yeah.
and that's it. And we had one ESPN fight with a female card on the card, which was Michaela's fight with Sandy Ryan. That was the first time in months. I mean, it's just been a disaster in the United States.
Did you
And
get
it may
Really
not be
has.
getting better in the UK because even with Boxer, they have a deal with Sky Sports. Now, when
Yeah.
Matchroom left Sky Sports, Sky signed up with Boxer, but their budget is just a fraction of what they were paying for the rights for Matchroom. You
Yeah.
know, the Matchroom, they were getting Anthony Joshua before he would sort of exhausted his major marketability, and they're
Yeah.
getting obviously a lot of top fighters, so they're not paying that much. And now this talk, okay, that comes up for renewal, I think sometime next year. Are are they going to renew it at all? And we're also on in the U.S. Peacock because they're all part of the Comcast NBC
Yeah.
International
Yeah.
umbrella. But I
Monopoly?
don't are any is anybody watching that on Peacock in the United
Well,
States?
they barely have any promotion. I mean, I know Queensberry, which is a British promotion company. They've been doing a lot of the Riyadh season stuff. They have actually signed a deal with DAZN, and their fights will start to be shown on DAZN in the spring of
Yeah, which means
2025.
fewer people will watch them.
But they're not. The Queensberry stuff is never even seen here. So because they don't have outlets, because they can't get Sky, and Sky
Other than you?
occasionally
Yep.
shows up on ESPN,
They
but
were on
very
TNT
infrequently.
Sports before that, which used to
Yeah.
be BT, and
Yep.
that's part of the Warner Brothers Discovery, which under the current leadership is screwing up all of its sports rights. They
Yep.
screwed up the NBA rights, and with boxing isn't, they couldn't even figure out at all
Can't
what to
even find boxing. You go on ESPN, it's like you keep looking, where the hell is the boxing? Oh, there it is.
All
and
the way to the end.
ESPN Plus is losing subscribers. Well, a lot of people are being very judicious with their spending these days with
Yeah, well, they're not
inflation and
then.
everything.
Yeah, well, then what you can do, what I started to do, I gave up my subscription for them ESPN, and it's just bundled on Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN. So that's how I see it now. I watch it on Hulu, because it's bundled. Because
Yeah.
But
otherwise,
they
I was
have more
paying a
stuff on
fortune.
ESPN Plus, but very few people watch that because all that stuff is basically all that ESPN stuff is geared to the UFC brawls, and their deal is up next year too, and so
Yeah,
it's unclear what the hell's is going to happen
yeah. Like
with
if you,
ESPN and
yeah,
any kind of combat
yeah,
sports.
and on Hulu, they show all the ESPN stuff. So it's mostly at this time of year, it's all football, college football. They have a lot of soccer, you know, soccer from all over the world. They have other weird sports, and there's UFC, and then a tiny little asterisk that says boxing, which is only at this point top ranked. They don't really even show the European stuff anymore. So it's or South American stuff.
Well, isn't Dana
Terrible.
White supposed to be getting into boxing?
That's
God knows.
bullshit he's been talking about
For
because he's
years.
jealous of boxing. He was a boxer. He
Another one.
still thinks like the boxer size instructor that he was back in the
Yeah.
90s before he became a
And
manager,
God,
getting
please
involved with
don't
the
get,
early
because
UFC.
I
Yeah,
really don't want to see the orange clown at a boxing match. Don't
and
give me that.
he always talks a lot. He has
He's
all
a
these
goober.
marks following him who think that UFC is really ultimate fighting, like it's the
Yeah.
highest level of fighting.
Oh
But
God.
I'll get into that another point.
Another time.
And
Oh,
he's been jealous of boxing, and
yeah.
he's been saying that for decades. There'd be zoo for boxing, and he said it again recently, and a lot of the marks believes him. And even the head of their parent company said, which is looking to, there's a lot going on in the sports media landscape that the TKO Holdings, which is UFC and WWE. That's a good pair, having that garbage both together.
Ugh.
But they've expanded into other sports, PBR, professional bull riding, and some others that they brought in that are not combat sports. And they said, no, we're not getting into boxing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's all bullshit. It's all
Oh,
bullshit.
bullshit, Dana
Yeah. So
White.
I
Like a
remembered who
politician,
retired.
you know how you
Teresa
can tell when
Estrada.
like a politician. You could tell how when Dana White is lying is when his lips are moving.
Right. Of course.
Jeez.
All right.
Yeah. So
All right.
anyway, Sinisa Estrada,
Yeah.
who, you know,
She just retired.
she just retired.
Yeah.
She finally won. She became undisputed at minimum weight,
Right.
and then that's it.
She can go teach boxer size now.
So she's done.
Yep. All right.
Why
Well, look,
fight out?
look,
We talk a lot about Dana White. We
yeah,
know a lot about
but
this
not in
this
but
guy.
not in this
Not
session
today.
today. Not today. We don't talk about his ass today. No, no, no,
Mother,
no.
Oh,
his mother hates him too.
yeah. I don't. Would you looking at that face? Ugh.
Oh, Lordy. Eddie, did you want to have any more commentary on the charade fight?
Yes, I think it's important to understand why this got so much attention. They're claiming that they had over 72,000 fans. I don't know how many of them were paid, but let's assume for argument's sake that 70,000 of them were paid. These are 70,000 marks that paid money thinking they were going to be seeing a real important fight. What percentage of these people came, wouldn't have come if you didn't have this fight at the top? If you had the rest of the card, it was some good fights, not just Taylor and Serrano, the Mario Barrios, Abel
Oh, and the
Ramos
Ramos
fight.
fight.
That
What
fight
was
was
a
good.
That was
Great
a
fight.
good fight, and you almost had a huge upset in that fight. And there was some other good fights that were on there. Shoot Bruce Carrington was on the undercard. Shadacia Green came away with a draw in that card. If you didn't have Tyson and Paul, how many people would have, out of those 70,000 people, would have paid to come? Obviously, just a small fraction of those. And it was built on a sham, on a lie. Everybody's been lying to you. The Texas Commission approved this as a real fight, as a real sanctioned fight, like the 58-year-old Tyson, who only wanted 2-minute rounds and 14-ounce gloves, was in shape to have a fight with anybody. Jake Paul is at best a mediocre club fighter. Yet he has all these people watching him thinking that he's a real boxer. Say you're a professional boxer, only means that you get in a ring, that you box, and you get paid. That's all that it means. It doesn't have anything to do with your skills, your ability, or your history, or anything like that. The whole thing was a sham. And then it came out at the end where he admitted during the post-fight press conference that he took it easy on Tyson towards the end of the fight because he didn't want to hurt him. If you don't want to hurt somebody, fine. I could fully understand that. Play chess with them. Play
Exactly.
volleyball with them, right? Do something else. But if you get in a boxing ring and you're fighting to win a fight, even if it is just an 8-rounder, it's a hurt game. You're supposed to
Exactly.
do your best. And it wasn't that he was just coasting at the end because he was ahead on points. It was fought like it was a sparring session, like it was an exhibition. And Paul even admitted, he said, I wanted to give the fans a show, but I didn't want to hurt someone who didn't need to be hurt. If he didn't
Well,
need to
they
be hurt,
yeah,
shouldn't
they
have been in the ring.
they shouldn't
It's
have
it's as
called it a
simple as
real
that.
fight. It should have just been an exhibition.
Exhibition, exactly.
Right.
Why
So
exactly? Bullshit. I'm
so
with
there are
you.
a couple of things that have to be decided about what this was. And I gave a number of possibilities. One is that they started off and it devolved into what was merely an exhibition because Tyson blew up. I don't know if people still use that phrase where you just completely get exhausted. He blew up after about a round or two. Okay. The other possibility is that they had some agreement ahead of time that will be fought like an exhibition. These kind of agreements don't have to be explicit. If you've been in the ring, you know sometimes you just turn it into a sparring session. Either case, it was not a proper competitive fight. And one possibility is that it was fixed. Now, we don't know that. There's not necessarily any evidence of that. But all of these possibilities mean it was not a proper competitive professional fight, and it was a scam and a sham, and people got taken for their money. The other possibility is that Paul is lying, that he didn't purposely take it easy so he didn't hurt Tyson, is because he couldn't hurt Tyson. He couldn't hurt a 50-year-old guy who was washed up, whose peak, you know when Tyson's peak as a fighter was? 1989, 35 years ago. Since the Buster Douglas fight, he's been on the downswing all along. But people think of him as the same, believe in this myth, is the same Mike Tyson as he was. So he only threw a few punches in the latter half of the fight when Tyson was throwing nothing and standing right in front of him, and Paul couldn't do anything with him. So whichever of these possibilities is true, and I don't think we should have, there are a lot of other things I think that require big investigations. What I said, and this is, I wrote this on my Patreon article, that this was at best an exhibition and at worst a fixed fight. Either way, it was a scam, a sham, and a disgrace. And look at Tyson's history. He quit in his last two fights 20 years ago against Danny Williams and Kevin McBride, neither of whom are exactly Hall of Fame fighters. Danny Williams is sort of like I think a fringe contender at one point, but he quit on both of those fights. And the reason, though, that this myth was able to be developed and gain traction was for the same type of reason we're discussing about the state of women's boxing. The promoters and the networks are not making the best fights. The best are not fighting the best. They're hiding out. There are mismatches. There are 50 zillion titles. Then somebody wins a bunch of titles and gets unified or undisputed, and they get stripped, and somebody else gets a title. It's it's absolutely absurd. No other sport is run like this, which is why it's really declined. And there were so many people that remember Tyson from his heyday in the 80s. They probably haven't watched much boxing since then. Maybe they watched some in the 90s, and that's it. And they moved on to other things, and they say, oh, I remember that. Well, what other sport does this? You know, in baseball, teams like the Yankees have old timers day, and the last few years they stopped having games. But if you saw the timers day games, these people would come out, they dress up in their old uniform with their old number, and they'd be, the
Oh my
greatest fielder in
God.
the game would make a ball would go through his legs, and it was just awful. But it was a joke because a
Right,
lot of them were drunk and they were laughing and just having a good time. Okay, you want to have old timers day game? That's
right,
have a lot of fun. There's a lot of nostalgia and all that.
Yeah, 1 minute rounds, whatever.
Yeah, but
right.
All
you
1 minute
don't do
rounds,
this and declare it a major professional fight. And I also said in the article that while it's unclear whether it was P.T. Barnum who said there's a sucker born every minute, somebody did, and that phrase particularly applies now. And I said many Americans, including the wealthy and well-educated, are very gullible people who regularly fall for con artists and scammers, and they willingly part with lots of their money, hard-earned or not, to pocket to line the pockets of these charlatans, mountebanks, and thieves. Okay, we have a bunch of Ghanas running boxing, and if you don't know what that word is, look it up, please, because that's particularly relevant. Just look at some of the headlines, recent headlines, and you should understand that. And what happened is people have checked out of boxing, out of watching professional boxing, but the sport sort of in the abstract has a large following. People like boxing. They just don't like what is being put on now
The
for
corruption.
professional boxing on TV.
Right.
And the corruption. You watch a fight. I'm not talking about the Taylor Serrano fight, but we all regularly watch fights where one person everybody thinks wins the fight and the other person's hand is raised. This
Yep.
shit goes on all the time. Nothing, there's no investigations. Nothing is ever done about it, at least in professional boxing. Amateur boxing, there's something being done about it, but not in professional boxing. And people say, why am I watching this shit?
Yep.
Again, in baseball, they brought in the replay review because umpires made mistakes, usually just honest mistakes. It's a bang bang play and the umpire gets it wrong. So they have an independent group of people look at it and they show it in the ballpark too. So you can look for yourself. And sometimes even that gets it wrong, but there's at least an attempt to right these wrongs. This was put in a number of years ago. There was a pitcher named Galarraga. I think he was with the Tigers, and he's pitching a perfect game. And there was 2 outs in the ninth inning. And the last batter gets up and hits a ground ball. The infielder throws it to first and gets him out by about a step. The umpire called him safe. Perfect game, no hitter, gone. The umpire just screwed up, and people are like, "What?" So they said, "We can't have this. The umpires make mistakes. They're human. They screw up. We have to have a way to appeal this." And they put this in. Again, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than what they had before. Boxing does nothing about this whole structure, and people are just checked out of the sport. So when these spectacles, these shams come along, they say, well, at least that used to be Mike Tyson that's in there. And how good is this Jake Paul guy anyway? Oh, they say his record is 10-1. Maybe he's pretty good. They don't know
Fighting
that he's
tomato
mainly
can.
beat. Yeah, he's beaten washed up wrestlers and MMA fighters and all of that. And MMA, the boxing part of it is absolutely terrible. Probably getting worse than it even was in the early days, where you had people like Maurice Smith, who was a kickboxing champion, and others that were in
All
MMA.
right.
But it's that vacuum and this garbage, these celebrity fights, these influencer fights, all this crap has gone into the vacuum. And the promoters are too corrupt to take advantage of this in most cases. And then the Saudi Arabians come with their petrodollars and wanting to build up their country, and they'd say, we'll throw a lot of money at this, and everyone just runs over there as fast as it can. They even bought Ring magazine. So you can
I
imagine
know.
what that's going to come, what that's going to
Yeah, I
be.
mean it's offline right now, and we don't know what's
More
happening.
propaganda. That's where
We
that's
don't
gonna come.
we don't know what's happening. I mean, as you know, I'm on the Ring Magazine women's rating committee, and we're dedicated to
You're gonna have to start your
our
own women's ring magazine. Screw
well,
it.
so we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's all up in the air. We're waiting to
Awful.
hear what the
Well, look,
story is.
yeah.
I
Look,
mean, we've had nothing this week, so that says a lot. That says volumes because we haven't even had an email this week.
right. Well, I am super disappointed that Mike Tyson stepped in the ring with that fool Jake Paul. I told my wife that Mike Tyson was gonna lose, so she lost a little money on that fight. But what
That
I
turned well.
am, I know I fell asleep. I went to sleep. What I am happy about is we have blue skies
Yeah,
that have
yeah.
our way post-election that has warmed my heart.
Having
Building
a blast
community.
over there.
That's right. I'm having a blast over there, getting to learn the app, and I love the little starter packs. And I do want to give a big shout out to our combat sports folks over there who have started a little channel called Combat Sports with the boxing glove. Put a boxing glove on there, you can be added to the sports channel. But Eddie, you're gonna like this dude. His name is Endorphin. He plays a lot of sumo videos, a lot of sumo wrestling videos, which are just beautiful because it's like the whatever tournament's going on, he plays those. And then another guy named Tristan that I've been following on Blue Sky. So they're pretty good
What
about.
is this thing called? Because I haven't seen very much boxing stuff on there at all. And
I
boxing Twitter, as usual, boxing is the dinosaur sport,
no,
and they're way behind the times. And it took them forever to get on Twitter. Now people are fleeing Twitter. Blue Sky today that we're recording surpassed 20 million users and
right.
counting. There's even an actual counter that I linked to of how many users they have. And what, just a couple of weeks ago, they had just had a couple of million people. People are fleeing that that site for all sorts of reasons. They're now going to sell your data to AI
Okay.
from Twitter. They're going to take away the block function. It's loaded with all kinds of MAGA bots and all kinds of lunatics. So look, it's not going to stay this copacetic on Blue Sky forever,
Don't put
but
that out in the
it's,
universe. It is going to stay copacetic over at Blue Sky because I control my domain. And if you go to the feeds, that's where you're going to find the combat sports community. So you have to look for the feed called Combat Sports.
uh,
Another website that has another app that has a humongous boxing, like there's hundreds of thousands of people in this community, is on Reddit. The boxing community on Reddit is on fire over there, and they are like serious about their boxing. So that's another app for you, though, Eddie. I don't know if you want to dive into that, but
I'm not crazy about that.
no, but I'm just saying that it's bigger than the community on Twitter.
Well,
Yeah, but
yeah,
it
I mean, there's
doesn't.
still a
But
lot of my boxing people are still there, but
Yeah, I'm not.
it
Yeah.
doesn't all. See, the other thing is that on Twitter, you also get at this point, you still get a certain official news. And I think it's important to be in a place where so when fights are announced legitimately, not rumors and all this nonsense, you could find out some of that information on Twitter and it's linked to just the basics, who's fighting,
You still have your
when.
Twitter account, Eddie?
Yes.
You
I
trade.
had a lot of people that are still, and also a lot of things, a lot of government officials are there, government news, people talking about all
Oh,
sorts of issues, what's going on in the Middle East and Ukraine. Zelensky's still on there.
yeah.
There's so much that's been built up since it started in 2006, it was, and I
I
joined in 2007. They haven't, only a fraction have gone over to has gone over to Blue Sky.
mm.
So you're missing out on all kinds of stuff.
I
No, no.
The
all my
Democrats are
boxing
not
world
on
is there.
Blue Sky. I haven't seen Biden or Harris or
Well, they're on Threads.
They're coming though. Trust me, they are
They're
coming.
on Threads right now.
which
They're
which
not on Twitter.
downplays the algorithm, downplays political stuff, and they sometimes thread censors things,
Yeah,
not that are
No, they throttle on
inflammatory, but
there.
that are just sort of a political opinion that's not insulting or nasty, whatever. They don't want it on there because Zuckerberg wants a place. Zuckerberg is a big Trump supporter, and he doesn't want his sites, Facebook or Threads, to be home to people that are attacking his boy.
right. Which is why I'm leaving Threads also and move to Blue Sky because there's none of that over there. There's no throttling my conversations about.
No, no, there's no throttling at all, and they don't censor you.
Yeah.
Um,
There are bots. I'm starting to see some bots
Yeah,
and
but you just gotta,
you just block
everybody's
them.
got bots.
You
Everybody's got
Yeah,
block them.
bots.
That's
You
all. The
block
main
them.
thing is
right.
you police it along with everybody else, and that's how it stays clean. You just get rid of it fast.
Right.
Yeah.
But in terms of you could do a search for boxing and look at the boxing posts.
Right.
There's not a lot. There's some, but
There's
there's not a
some,
lot. Now again,
some.
this is changing so rapidly. You have 20 million people on there.
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks ago,
You
you
got to
had
build your
what,
community, Eddie. Build
maybe
your community.
You just
a
got to
fourth of
invite
that.
people to come. say, hey,
Yeah.
tweet, come over here. You're not going to have all the bots and see what happens. I mean, I, I stay on Twitter for only for boxing, like fight nights. And there are still some people overseas that I stay in contact with through Twitter who aren't anywhere else. So some folks and I are boxing people.
Well,
Partic-
I love
But
the
that's the only reason.
and people are fleeing Twitter. I think in the last week or two, I've lost something like 200 followers. People are
well,
just closing their accounts.
right,
Yeah.
because it's a Nazi platform. So why
Well, it
stay?
is. It's a racist platform. I mean, it's
Right.
disgusting. As I
Yeah.
said, I only check into it for a very specific community of people that have not left yet, of
Yeah.
certain boxing people, and that's the only reason.
Oh, I get
Otherwise,
that.
I don't
I get it. But look, we're gonna wrap this up. So
Gotta
Eddie,
go.
yeah, we gotta go. Eddie, anything else you want to cover before we bounce and make it short and sweet,
Yeah,
baby?
a couple of things. I have the NHP News handle on BlueSky. Mine is just blowing up. Every time I check it, there are new followers and all that. So
Yay.
come on BlueSky and look that up. And also shout out to our friend Alva. Alva Johnson has Vibe Architects Thursday nights, 7 Eastern on Radio Free Brooklyn. She is recently joined Blue Sky, but
Yeah,
Radio
she
Free
is.
Brooklyn has that. That's an example of that. That a lot of people are still have yet to join Blue Sky. So check it out. Subscribe to my Patreon. You're not going to get the bullshit that you're getting from the bought and paid for boxing media. That's at patreon.com/Eddie Goldman. And we should end, maybe sing a little Blue Skies together.
No singing, Eddie.
Uh,
No singing, Eddie. I can't sing.
I neither can I, but it deserves some singing.
Oh, it does, but not today. Not today. All right,
No,
Melissa.
never saw the sun shining so bright.
Oh, Lord.
Never saw things going so right. Nothing the days hurrying by when you are in love. My, how they fly. Oh, blue skies smiling at me. Listen to the Dinah Washington version I linked on Blue
I saw
Skies because
that.
they
I saw that.
incredible arrangement from
Yeah.
1950. This is what another thing, the best music, 1954, 70 years ago. Now listen to
Year
what
I was
they're
born.
listening
Of course, it's great.
I wasn't even a twinkle in my daddy's eye.
to. They were
All
listening
right.
to Blue Skies too.
Yeah, I'm sure they were. All right, look, Melissa, tell the people where they can find you, my
All
friend.
right, I am at Girl Boxing now on all platforms.
Woo!
I am having a grand time on Blue Sky. I am on Threads. I still post there. I've been trying to build boxing on Threads. That had never gone well, but I'm going to definitely be pushing that on Blue Sky, see what happens. I have my website for girlboxing.org or melissa-smith.com. And listen, the holidays are coming. So if you need a good present,
That's right.
by
Get
The
that
Promise
book.
of Women's
Where's my book?
Boxing, a momentous new era for the sweet science. It's got Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano on the cover from their first amazing. Oh, girl, you are awesome.
I'll come ready, baby.
Oh, and yeah, so just you can find it wherever you want to buy books online, whether that's Barnes and Noble or Amazon or smaller shops, you can find it, or go to the publisher. Littlefield and sorry,
Barnes and
blanking here.
Nobles.
Yeah, Barnes and Noble is good, or if you're still buying stuff on Amazon, then do that. And thank you very much. I'm really happy that we did the show today. It's great to be
Yeah.
with my pals.
All
Thank
right.
you all for listening.
And I want to add one other quick thing. If you want to see how big boxing used to be, watch some old film noir. I've been watching a lot of that recently, and it's on TCM. If you get that, if you don't get that, you can find it on YouTube and the Internet Archive and look up some fights. There were a lot of boxing movies, usually talking about corruption in boxing. This is like from the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And there's boxing themes, boxers all over the place in these old films because it was such a ubiquitous sport. Not anymore. This is what Aram and Golden Boy and
Mhm.
Hearn and Warren and Turkey Al Sheik and all these people have done to the sport.
It's in the garbage, in the toilet. Well, look, folks, I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. I am your host. I am your fight goddess, Chris Baldwin. And you guys, check out our YouTube channel. We're at War Sports on YouTube. I'm at Fight Goddess on Blue Sky and Threads and Fight Goddess One on Instagrams. On the Instagram, as my old elders say, on the Instagram. Um, but Fight Goddess One, you guys check me out on Blue Sky because that's my new home. I love it over there. No more shitter because I deleted that crap. I just can't take it post election. I'm cleaning house. Cleaning house. I even canceled my Amazon account. That's how mad I am at Bezos. So, hey, you guys, I appreciate you all for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. So next time we drop a video, you'll be tuned in and notified. Until then, we're going to see you guys next time. Peace, love, and push ups.
Blue skies, all of them
Oh, peace,
guys,
love, and blue sky.
nothing but blue skies.